In the 1960s, motorsports was on the rise in the United States, thanks to two massive racing series, USAC and NASCAR. Both of these series had humble beginnings, and were built on drivers that cared much more about passion than money and fame. This was the kind of person Bruce Jacoby was. He was an ordinary guy who worked a normal job, had a family, and just loved all things racing. However, he was an ordinary guy who raced alongside legends like AJ Foyt, Mario Andretti, Richard Petty, and many more. Unfortunately, tragedy would strike on the day of one of Bruce's biggest chances in his racing career. This is the story of Bruce Jacoby. Harold Bruce Jacoby was born June 23, 1935 in Greenville, Indiana. By the time Bruce was 5 years old, his family had moved to Salem, Indiana. This is where young Bruce got his interest in racing, likely due to Salem Speedway just a few miles from his home, which opened in 1947. Jacoby got his start in racing at the age of 18, focusing primarily on short-track open-wheel racing like midgets. In 1960, the 25-year-old got the chance to take the biggest step of his career, the USAC Champ Car Series. His first attempt at a race was at the Milwaukee Mile, but he didn't qualify. This wasn't seen as an embarrassment in those days, as typically only 18 to 22 cars would make the field, depending on the track size, and 15 to 20 more cars would miss the show any given week. He had 3 more DNQs before making his first start at Phoenix. Bruce started 10th in an 18-car field and finished 8th. 1961 was a similar story. Jacoby showed up to 10 of the 12 race weekends, but only took part in 2. A 14th place finish at Trenton and 14th at Langhorne. In 1962, Bruce passed his rookie test for the Indy 500, but missed the show. The next year, Jacoby wrecked his car in practice. He attempted the race 4 more times, but never qualified for the Indy 500. Bruce wasn't known as the fastest driver on track, but he could take care of his car. He was a journeyman driver, never racing more than 5 times for the same team. He attempted 74 races between 1960 and 1970, qualifying for 38 of them. His best finish was at Springfield in 1970, where he took home a 4th place finish. Now, Jacoby wasn't a full-time racer. He was a part-time racer that worked as a carpenter full-time and raced whenever he could. During this time, he raced all across the country in midgets and short tracks, racing anywhere he could get an opportunity. As he began pursuing his dream in USAC, he moved to Speedway, Indiana. In 1969, he met his wife, Yada, here in Speedway. She was also a racer, taking part in sports car races occasionally. After the 1970 season, Jacoby's career in USAC seemed to be completely over. He did get a one-off shot to qualify for the 1973 Indy 500, but didn't make the field. Bruce needed a change. At this point, he was almost 40 and hadn't had a real crack at full-time racing. But leading into 1975, Bruce got his shot. Not for anything open-wheel though. This time, it was NASCAR's Grand National Series. He and Opal Voigt paired up for 15 races during the 1975 Grand National season with sponsorship from Voigt's business, Opal's Truck Stop. Bruce made the 1975 Daytona 500 by the skin of his teeth, finishing 18th in his duel and started in 40th for the 500. Despite this, he wheeled his Chevrolet to 12th in the Great American Race. His second race was at Darlington. Once again, Bruce made it to the finish and brought it home in 9th place. At Talladega a few weeks later, Bruce improved his best finish and finished 8th. 2 top 10s and a 12th place finish to start his career. Pretty impressive to say the least. After a solid 16th place run at Charlotte, Jacoby retired in 3 straight races due to mechanical failures. He rebounded with 4 straight finishes of 11th, 12th, 15th, and 9th. Unfortunately, Jacoby had back-to-back crashes at Richmond and Dover, but would end the season with a pair of solid finishes. Jacoby ended the season with 15 starts and 3 top 10s. In the 10 races he finished, he had a worst finish of 16th place. Honestly, really good numbers for a rookie, and could have potentially won the Rookie of the Year if it wasn't for a stellar season by Bruce Hill, who racked up 11 top 10s. Despite the encouraging season, Jacoby was out of a ride for 1976 after missing the 500 with Opal's team. Opel would only field 2 more entries ever in NASCAR, so this was probably just a funding issue. Missing the 500 was a death sentence for underfunded teams at this time, simply due to the prize money and sponsorship money earned during the race weekend. Jacoby bounced around a few teams and made 3 starts in 1976, but only had a best finish of 27th. He attempted the 30th race of the season in the number 37 car under his own name, so Bruce may have bought the car from Opel, or he simply loaned Bruce the car. Whatever the case, Bruce's NASCAR window had closed just about as quickly as it had opened. In 1977, Jacoby found a ride for the World 600, racing for Tom Goff in a number 78 Chevy. During a morning practice session, Rick Newsom lost control of his car off turn 4 and was hit in the side by Jacoby. Jacoby's car flew into the air and rolled end over end down the track. Newsom's engine was ripped out of his car, but he was somehow uninjured. Jacoby escaped with minor injuries, but missed the race. Yada, Bruce's wife, recalled many stories of how unlucky he was. One year at the Brickyard, Bruce was struck by a flywheel and had to be replaced for the main event. A young driver named Mario Andretti took over his ride and never looked back. She also spoke of an instance where Bruce was pronounced dead after a crash at a racetrack in Pennsylvania, but he ultimately pulled through. The risk never deterred him from racing, despite not having a huge amount of success. By 1983, to say Jacoby was desperate for a seat was definitely an understatement. Bruce packed his stuff and headed to Daytona completely rideless to try his luck at getting a seat for the Daytona 500. He came across Bill Measle, who became a proud owner of a Pontiac before the season. However, Bill wasn't completely confident in driving a Pontiac, so he was in need of a driver. One day before the duels, Bill asked Bruce to race his car. However, this stroke of luck turned sour in the blink of an eye. Bruce only made it 5 laps in the race before tragedy struck. He was running near the back all on his own when his car broke loose off turn 2. His car went airborne and flipped several times before coming to rest on his wheels near the inside dirt embankment. The wreck's exact cause isn't known, but the drivers reported it being a very windy day as most of the field battled handling issues. Jacoby was removed from his car unconscious and was transported to the Halifax Health Medical Center in Daytona Beach. Here, he was given treatment for a bruised brainstem and a severe injury to one of his eyes. Several days later, Jacoby was reported to be breathing with the assistance of a respirator. His major injuries were credited to a partial failure in the roll cage of his car. Unfortunately, Jacoby's condition was listed as critical and he was in a coma. A couple weeks later, he was transferred to Methodist Hospital in Indianapolis to be near his family and later placed in a nursing home. Bruce remained in a coma and required 24/7 care. Yada took on this burden of caring for her husband most of the time as she was a registered nurse. In January of 1985, she received USAC's Woman Behind the Scene Award for her care for her husband. Despite all her efforts, treatments, and support from the community, Bruce never regained consciousness and passed away on February 5, 1987, almost 4 years after his accident at Daytona. He was 51 years old. Despite his spotty career, Jacoby was able to accomplish more than most racing drivers, as an overwhelming majority never sniffed the Indy 500 or Daytona 500. He had competitive stretches in both USAC and NASCAR, something that even fewer drivers can say. He lived a completely normal life as a carpenter, but was able to live his dream while supporting his own family of 5. Yada said that Bruce was the happiest she had ever seen him leading up to the speed weeks, and that he was thrilled about the chance. I had to climb a ladder to talk to him. I hadn't seen him that excited in a long time. She was the biggest supporter of her husband, and loved racing just as much as him. After all, she agreed to get married at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. He said that if he had to go, that's where he wanted to go. But not like this. Not to just lay there like he is. It's like any pro sport. It's an addiction. Bruce said that when he got into a car and buckled in, it was like a part of his body. When he was in the car, nothing else existed. And that's it for this video, guys. I hope you guys did enjoy. This was a story I was definitely not familiar with before looking into it, so I hope you guys took something away and learned something today. If you guys did enjoy, make sure you leave a like and subscribe for more videos, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.